job is really
Would
cool.
all delegates please make their way to their chosen conference venue, as session 4 will be starting at 4:30.
Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about machine learning. So the first few things that I have to get out of the way: Intrepid Digital, enterprise level, marketing agency. My boss will kill me if I don't mention this. And myself, I'm Lazarina. I love Data Studio. I love experimenting with machine learning, and most of the things that I do is just to empower people to experiment themselves, because I know most of the people sitting in this room, if you're here, you can do a lot better than what I can do, because I can't code, I'm not a developer, and I'm just doing my best with what I have. So let's get into it. So starting with my big three numbers, so 800,000 experiments Google does each year to the search engine results page to see...
Apologies, would delegates make their way to their chosen conference venue? Session 4 is starting imminently. Thank you.
Yes, and from these experiments, 5,000 are the changes that actually get published to live. And as we all know, despite what you might be hearing about TikTok becoming the new Google, Google holds 92% of the market share in search engines. So we should be paying attention to what they're doing to the search engine results page. And we know Google is ever changing, they're constantly experimenting, they're growing, they are trying to adapt as much as possible to what the users want on that page. And the search engine results page is actually the one-stop shop where they can communicate with their users, where they can show them everything that they want to in the best way possible, keep them there, show them the information that they want, and just ensure that the users are coming back to that page instead of going to TikTok, let's say. And we can see the different things that they're trying to do. So obviously they want to promote some of their partners. We have page results, we have other services like Google Maps helping you find some certain things. We have the organic results, but they're also trying to help us discover new things about the things that we are searching for, or also maybe how to do something, ratings, recipes, tutorials, whatever it is, you name it. Also helping you to buy on that page, different ways that you can shop for products without even leaving the page, helping you choose, refine, broaden your search, you name it, highlighting different content creators and different pages that they want to highlight, and enriching your search intent as well. So Google is doing all of that, and side note, thanks Mordy for collecting all of these examples. I didn't collect all of them. But in other words, they're doing all of that. They're running all of these experiments that most of us don't actually see, and they're pushing changes to that page. And this is the most important page. So they're doing the research that is continuous, that is rigorous, that is based on big data. They have the pattern recognition, and we are actually not using that research. So my question today is, why are we not tapping into this research? Instead of the old way, where you have a content idea, and then you write something about it, thinking that you're going to rank on that page on position 1, because you're the best content writer and everything that you do is perfect, and you publish it, hope for the best, and then nothing happens. Why is it not on position 1 yet? Or maybe your client is like, hey, this was supposed to rank, why is it not ranking? And then maybe another consultant comes along and says, we have to sunset this content. This is a very old model, and it's not working in today's age. So my suggestion is to put the user and the data first, and tap into the research that Google's already doing on that page. So if you have an idea based on the research that you've done for keyword research, content strategy, study the SERP, start from there. Get the analysis and understanding of what is ranking for your set of keywords, your topic, understand what users want for this particular topic, assess the competitors and their performance, and then write the bones of your content using those insights. And if you have a very good, well-defined brand, you can then fit in what you, as a brand or as an organization, can contribute to that piece of content, to the topic, using those bones and structures. And after that, you write and publish the content, and you'll have a much better chance of success that way. So how this presentation is going to work, because at the end of the day, now that I've justified why I'm on the stage, I have to actually talk about machine learning. So I'll cluster all of my different recommendations into 3 categories using the Moscow framework. So you have your must-haves, which are 60% of your effort, your could-haves, should-haves, which are 20%, and the could have, which are kind of like the fun learning thing that is not actually necessary, but in the hypothetical world you could do it. You could question maybe whether you should do it, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And the good news here is that your must-have and should-have all have templates that you'll be able to download and play with directly after the talk. So that work has been done for you, so you can actually experiment with a little bit more advanced stuff after this talk. And the want-haves are just maybe ideas that I haven't come up with yet, or things that I don't have the skill set to execute, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't explore more things that you can do with this data. So the analysis prerequisites are essentially the things that I wanted to have before I start this analysis. So that's keyword research, content strategy, and your brand voice guidelines that we mentioned the importance of a second ago. And in terms of the system that we are trying to build, for me, these are the important things. So I wanted to be flexible, I wanted to be reusable, I wanted to be able to enable my team to do that. So this is not an end-to-end custom-built system. It's not something super scary. It's something that everything is available in AppScript. Everyone can do it, and it just works at the click of a button. But if you're building a different kind of systems, you can choose other things. So let's start with something easy and fun, competitor analysis. Here, in your must-have category, you need to understand who your competitors are, what is their search visibility, their traffic potential, what URLs reappear continuously in the SERP. So we're going to get our data from Data for SEO. They use SimilarWeb to essentially do that analysis. So we register for Data for SEO. I'm not affiliated, I promise. You go to the Google Sheets template, or you can also get the code from them as well. They have very well-defined documentation, and you get your SERP competitors. Go to the panel, select your settings, enter your keywords, and you get the data. So these are all of the competitors that you are competing against in SERP with a very, very holistic overview. And now let's talk about how we can potentially visualize this data as a very first starting point of our analysis. The first thing we want to build is a competitor positioning map, just essentially to understand the relationship between the ranking, the visibility, and the traffic potential of each of the domains that are ranking for our keywords. We also want to understand what is the traffic, what is the visibility that different competitors are getting for the set of keywords that we are pursuing. We, of course, want to see the different rankings for those competitors for the keywords that we're having. But again, this is a very basic analysis, so let's move to something a little bit more complex. You can also, looking at these competitors, you can start tagging the different site types. So Wikipedia, Investopedia, these are wiki-based sites. We know Coursera, Udemy are courses, learning-based sites. We have news websites, we have reviews, we have technology websites or navigational kind of intent. So knowing this, we built the same competitor analysis map, and now we can see at a very holistic level what are the different types of websites that we are competing against. So this would give us a very good indication of the type of content that we want to create using this approach. And to take this a step further, something else that you should be doing is to tag a very holistic level intent category. So we know wiki, courses, news, that means that there are a lot of people wanting to learn about the keywords that we're pursuing. Maybe there are a lot of people that also want to understand what are the different products in the market and how they compare against one another. And there might be also people that are just trying to purchase something or to go to the brand. And by the way, if you don't recognize these sites, it's just because my data set is very much based in B2B tech, and I realized this was a bad choice, but you're just going to bear with me for the rest of the presentation. So yes, we have the same kind of competitor analysis map. We are building a very holistic overview of what the intent looks like. We can also calculate share of search based on the different domain, essentially what share of the search market different domains take, but we can also do that based on site categories. So for instance, wiki-based sites take 30% of the share of search, and then technology websites or brand websites take 5%. Share of search per intent category as well, something important to keep in mind. And now in the could have, we are starting to get a little bit more advanced. We are going to collect, using the same API, we are going to collect the bulk SERP analysis. So what are the different URLs that are ranking for the keywords that we have, and what are the different titles, meta descriptions that they're using. Again, we enter a set of keywords, we click a button, happy times. And I do want to have a little side note here. Data for SEO is absolutely great for big data sets, but you are very limited with what you can do in Google Sheets. You can only submit 100 tasks at a time. It's a post-get structure, and you're limited to 5 million cells, which if you are doing a very big analysis, enterprise-level websites, that can get you only as far. But with Python, you have an extremely well-developed documentation, and the functionalities and capabilities of these APIs are extremely well documented, and the potential is literally limitless to what you can do. So we get our data, we have result type, URL, domain, title, all the things that I just mentioned. And now we want to automatically provide classifications for these things that we mentioned at the start using GPT-3. Because now, instead of only analyzing maybe 20 different domains or URLs, we are analyzing, let's say, 50,000, and we want to have this automatically labeled. So we have a code that was built actually by GPT-3 and shared with us by Danny Richman. He shared it in his talk yesterday, but he also shared it in the past. Very easy, so thank Danny Richman for creating this code. Essentially, you prompt what GPT-3 should be doing. It should be providing a classification for your domain based on the category of the domain, get your labels, and then we visualize that. And here we can see we have a lot more robust categories of what the different sites are doing, and it has literally taken us 2 minutes to classify, let's say, 50,000 websites, which is amazing. What are the top categories that we have sites ranking in, and also what is the SERP makeup for all of the different keywords that we are looking at. And we also want to see as well, what are the different categories, how many URLs are they containing, how many keywords are they containing, what type of results are they being shown as? Is it organic, is it paid, is it featured snippet? We also want to see what are the domains that rank for the highest number of distinct keywords, and we also want to see what are the URLs that rank for the most keywords. Obviously, these are going to be the URLs that are performing the best for your set of keywords that you're doing this analysis for. And using this, you can also filter and zoom in to a particular keyword that you have collected the data for, and you can control the positions that you are seeing, and at a glance, you are seeing essentially the SERPs for that particular keyword. Who is ranking, how are they being shown? The next thing that we want to do after we see the SERP is just to explore everything that we have collected and try to have the patterns for that. And in order to help us, we are going to do some entity analysis work. Now, this code is nothing new. Google has provided it about 7 years ago in a presentation at SERPConf. So if you're not experimenting with entity analysis and you're not incorporating that, it's literally a click of a button, so please don't be intimidated to start doing that today. So we can do that for titles and meta descriptions. You get the code, your API key, your Sheets template, you input your data, essentially entering your URLs and meta descriptions, and then you get your entities and sentiment in a click of a button. It's literally as simple as that. And the fun part is that you are getting what are the entities that are recognized, the salience, the importance, and you're also getting the sentiment score with which all of these entities are mentioned in your data set. So depending on where you are doing this research and what industry you are working with, this can be quite important for your clients. And you're also getting the magnitude with which these entities are mentioned and the number of mentions, otherwise the prominence of this entity in your data set. And now the fun part, we visualize it. So what are the most common entities mentioned in your data set? We are now looking at data that is not tied in with URLs. It's just based on the data set of keywords that you're doing this analysis for. And what are the URLs that mention the most different entities and how many entities they mention. Obviously, this is quite a very good first step in your analysis. We also want to blend the data that we have collected with ranked data, and we are seeing how are the different entities placed in terms of the number 1 to 10 positions, and what are the sentiment with which they are mentioned. So we can see here the magnitude and also a custom label that we've built. Is it either a little bit positive, neutral, negative, etc. We also want to be able to explore all of this data, so we have a different set of dashboards, filters, tables that you can use in order to deep dive into this data a little bit more. And something that you should be doing as well is to check which part of which entities are actually based in the knowledge graph as well, And here we have Daniel Herrera that has an amazing tutorial, again, using AppScript that is very user-friendly for beginners to get started with doing this type of analysis. What you could be doing as well is to have rank prediction based on the entity presence of graph entities in your URL, in your title, in your meta description. In order to do that, you should, however, have a very large data set and a very large budget in order to be able to do that analysis. So moving on to sentiment analysis, which is totally optional, but is very good for people that are doing online reputation management or people that are working with a very sensitive set of keywords for your organization. You can analyze the sentiment of titles and meta descriptions, and it's a very similar process. You get the code, it's the same as before. You get your Google Sheets template, input your data, and then you get your sentiment. And just to have an example of how this works, you have your formula, and for a keyword, for instance, why is Jeff Bezos inspiring? A very glorious review by the Mirror is that he is an inspiration to us all. So obviously very positive, but it classified it as slightly positive. And then for another keyword, is how do you know if an Amazon seller is legit? And the ranking title mentions not getting scammed. Obviously, this is a little bit negative, so that's how it has classified it. So generally, it gives very good results out of the box, but obviously this is something that you can customize as well. And then we visualize again. So you can plot all of these results in terms of the average rank, and then you can very quickly identify the patterns in your data set. Is it mostly positive? Is it mostly negative? Obviously, because you've done the keyword research, you know what kind of keywords you have entered into this analysis. So it's very easy to get started with this kind of report. You also want to plot the sentiment score and analysis of meta descriptions as well, because the more data you provide for this analysis, the better the result is going to be. And here we can see we have a lot more results that are a little bit more negative in comparison. And once you go scroll down to the dashboard I posted, you can also see a plot where you will be able to see all of the different publications and the sentiment with which they are leaning towards. So is it mostly negative or is it mostly positive? You are going to be able to identify your allies or maybe your biggest opponents and be able to do a strategy that counteracts the information that is being put for your brand. And another very important thing is that once you have this data, you can filter based on a particular entity that's important, select only the keywords that, that mention this entity, and then you can understand the SERP sentiment relationships with the position and how this entity is being represented. So if we're talking about Amazon account, we can see that the sentiment is mostly negative, and obviously as a consultant we would want to counteract that. So another cool thing that you will be able to do, potentially, if you have the time and budget to do so, is you could enable also page analysis, not only meta description analysis. And might I also add, we as SEOs are quite bad at using readily available technology, so there are other ways that entity extraction and sentiment analysis can be used. So for entity extraction, you can do internal link opportunity identification, content opportunity identification, topical understanding, content understanding at scale. I can literally go on for days. And this was actually part of the last talk I did at Brighton, so if you haven't checked it out, check it out. And for sentiment analysis, you can analyze first-party collected data, you can do content opportunity, QA analysis, analyzing YouTube comments, user interactions, online reputation management, and it's all just a click of a finger in a Google Sheets, so please use that. And we can also do search intent analysis, labeling with GPT-3 with a very similar process to what we did before, but instead of using only the traditional classifications, we can do funnel-based intent classification, desired action classification, and verb-based classification. We could also do a little bit more in terms of visualizing and understanding intent using these more advanced classifications. Where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? And also, what are the relationships between the positioning, the entities, the domains that are ranking, the titles, and all of that stuff. And we can also do understanding of the content that is ranking. So if you know there are specific pages that you want to explore because they're extremely negative towards your brand, you can scrape them, analyze them, and understand exactly what they're talking about. You can also use one of these classifications that Semrush posted a while ago to understand a little bit better how the different featured snippets tied in with search intent. And you can also be like my friend Lee Foot, who's sitting at the back, and build a custom model, machine learning for understanding search intent. If you have the time and the skills to do so, please go ahead and give him a follow. He'll teach you everything you need to know. And in terms of language use analysis, you could also, if you can't code like me, you can ask GPT-3 to write your custom function in AppScript so you can understand a little bit better what are the different engrams that are contained in the titles and meta descriptions. And using that, you will be able to understand a little bit better the different titles that are ranking and what are the main keyword combinations that are ranking within those titles. Now you might notice something is missing, rank analysis. I'm going to very quickly fly through this because I'm not really sure how much that aligns with Google's guidelines at the moment, but you could track the positions and do rank tracking. You could also track how the SERP is changing over time. You could also monitor the changes based on important events, and you could also have prediction based on the size of your data set. If you have a very big data, very big organization, and a system in place, you could do that, but there's already tools that will be able to do that for you. And the cool thing that you can do with machine learning here is to predict organic CTR positions from changes that are happening in your positions and your URLs. You can also predict SERP makeup changes in anticipation for important events for your brand. You can also predict the positions for newly published content, or at least give a very good estimate of this. But again, the fact that you could do it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be doing this. So I hope you're all feeling super fired up to try machine learning now. And something I maybe should have said at the start, correlation does not equal causation. So just because you're seeing a relationship doesn't mean that that's actually the reason why that content is ranking like that. We as SEOs should know this. And all of your analysis should help guide your strategy, but it does not replace a strategy, because what you give in terms of the keywords that you're analyzing is what you're going to get as the report that comes out from all of these analysis. In other words, the analysis does not replace a keyword research content strategy. And to quickly recap what probably feels like the longest session ever, and I do apologize, you must be doing scaling your SERP analysis, not analyzing SERP by SERP, because we have moved far away from keyword-based analysis. You could build custom SERP reports, and you could also understand the landscape a little bit better for topics and for clusters, not just keywords. You should also start using Google's APIs in order to get a better understanding, and you should also start implementing GPT-3 for doing classification and labeling to help you with some of the heavy lifting. And you could do all sorts of cool things with machine learning and prediction, so I hope you feel inspired to do so, provided you have the big data to do that, the budget, and also the willingness to learn to do that. And the main things that I talked about will have a blog post and a video, so make sure that you connect with me somehow to get this data. You can get the dashboards and everything that I've shown here as well, and all of the sheets on my website. So thank you so much for listening and catching up.
I didn't think it was possible.